Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Previously on Deej getting into the lane. Roper lets it fly. Julian Roper knocks it down.
That's a nice jab still. Nice recovery by Nichols.
Hepburn, and there is the great three-point shooting of Chucky Hepburn. Those two have hit 5 of the 7 triples for the Badgers. And now Hepburn gets a steal. Uncontested two-handed jam.
You don't see Chucky Hepburn do that all.
A great Jeff. Hey, welcome to the show, Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Andrew Rogers, Damon Benning, happy to have you with us. My headphones were potted down there at the beginning. I'm like, man, it's 7 o'clock. Shouldn't we be starting this show? And
no, you never know.
Never know.
Just flip a coin.
Maybe somebody heard me talking about Naruto.
There's different lighting today. We're going with our regular lighting.
This was the lighting yesterday. I thought the same thing.
Shane, what happened to our blue and red track lighting? Did you forget how to work that?
No, I was kind of digging that. I mean, we could turn the blue on here if it.
No, it's okay.
Well, I already pushed the button.
Yeah, that's good.
Not so much. You want me to go back to the other?
Kind of like the dimmer lighting.
I can go back
Lower
to
the lights. Maybe put on some slow music. Shane,
Probably not.
dance the night away.
There, I went back to the other.
Oh, thank you.
Good morning, everybody out there, whoever or wherever you're catching us, whether that's 590 here in Omaha, 1480 in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. And it's going to be a great day. It's Tuesday morning, and Damon Benning's to my left, so it's always a good day when I got you next to me.
Ice Cube. Today is a good day.
And a big day to kind of get to a lot of things. There was some commits on the recruiting trail for the Huskers, some college basketball upsets, kind of some weird outcomes. I feel like this is a weird season for college basketball. I mean, you start with Wisconsin falling to Northwestern after they missed however many weeks of basketball, and then you also add in the fact that KU just can't buy a win right now.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they just don't get anything easy. You know, you watch their offense, and it is a lot of tough contested shots, not a lot of dribble penetration. But still, I mean, that I compare them to other teams that I've seen in college basketball, and on any given night, I feel like we say this every year about the brackets, and at the end it's chalky. But how are you supposed to decide between 2 through 7 on a seed line? Even the ones are going to be tough.
I normally going into March, I have a feeling of, hey, this is the best team in college basketball. I have no gauge on who the best team in college basketball is right now at this moment.
That's wild. And that's 3 in a row for KU. I felt like.
Are you sounding the alarm?
No.
Are you ringing the bell?
No, but I do. I mean, we talked about this yesterday with Gary. I think it's about the backcourt play and getting to spots on the floor. Same thing I think about UConn. Same thing I think about Indiana. Actually, Baylor's backcourt played really well last night. It was good to see Dachua kind of back engaged with his team. He got to warm up with him for the first time. When he had that knee injury, I figured not only did I dry heave a little, there's no way he's coming back from that to play basketball. But it's weird. It's I like the Big 12. I just don't know. Like, it's Kansas. I still think it's Kansas. They have one of the best coaches in the country. I think Self is fantastic. I'm going to stay with Kansas, but it's a deep conference.
Well, yeah, don't freak out if you are Kansas, because the teams that you lost to, Baylor will start with the most recent, is projected to win the league. You have K-State, who's 5th in the country right now, and you have TCU, who can beat any given team on any given night.
K-State may be the best story going. I mean,
what they've been able to do, how they've been able to put together a roster that is probably the most surprising in the top 5, let alone
I know Nebraska
maybe the
fans
top 25.
They're raising their hands and they're saying, how did he not meet clearance with his physical? He should be in Lincoln. But it is what it is, and K-State is rolling.
We will talk about a couple of different things. I want to get DB's thoughts on Tom Chattel wrote an interesting article yesterday about administration and how that goes a long way. So we'll get into that a little bit later on here in the first hour. We'll also talk to Nick Athan, CEO of PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. We'll talk to John Fanta at the 8:30 mark, and then we will end with Joel Lorenzi, who is the Creighton beat writer for the Omaha World-Herald. But as we...
Shane, if you had to gauge real quick, how much energy would Nick Athan bring?
He was bringing the energy just when I was texting him yesterday.
He is a energetic son of a gun. I'll be curious to get his temperature because it seems like for once, Chiefs fans, and listen, they're like a lot of passionate fan bases, so I'm not going to broad brush them, but very, very excitable, very, very animate. I feel like they're not very confident, and I would be. This time
you'd be confident with a one-legged Mahomes?
Yes, I absolutely would be.
And what makes you most confident about them?
Because I like the position they're in. I think that they'll have the head coaching advantage a little, even though clock management will be interesting between the two of them. Who will run the ball more? I think Andy Reid will be forced to run the ball a little bit more to keep Mahomes from having to ankle and shoulder the load, which means Pacheco gets more touches, which is good for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is good for that defense. And an edgy Kansas City Chiefs team led by Patrick Mahomes is a dangerous Chiefs team led by – I don't think most people think they can win. And I'm gauging this kind of from the national perception because this is how sprained ankles work, especially if you're a quarterback. You're going to have your first 2 days of soreness. He's going to do his treatment, and people are going to talk about it all week. Do you know who's not going to think about it? Patrick Mahomes. He's just not.
Well, he's not going to let that drive him.
That game plan is going to be what it is, whatever it is, and he's going to compete. So he's the least.
I'll tell you what, though, high ankle sprains, those are hard.
It's fine. I still think he plays.
Oh, he'll play.
Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind that he'll play. Anybody would play on an injury like that.
I pit it against what I think, Burrow's got to be able to do. I mean, Burrow deals with dirty pockets all the time. Now, it's different because Mahomes will have to plant and push and be able to drive the ball. But I don't worry about Mahomes. I do like the fact that people are talking about the 4-0 with the Bengals and the Chiefs, Burrow, Mahomes. I like all of that for focusing on Kansas City because I still think that they're the better team. Now, they're not playing better. So we'll see if the Bengals can keep that mojo up because they're hot. And this is about when they always start to kind of get it going with Burrow because he's really good in crunch time. But I like the fact that not a lot of people think they're going to win. I mean, the line swung 3 points. Chiefs opened as a fave. They're now
my buddy got him as a pick 'em.
They're now a dog, right? What are they currently? Like getting one, catching a point? You got them as a pick 'em? That's great.
+2.
Yeah. Wow. That's more than that.
+2 at home.
Yeah. So that's good. I like all of that. I like all of that.
I'll tell you what, though, like I said about the high ankle sprain, I mean, we saw that take out Christian McCaffrey.
Different for a running back.
Yeah, and of course, but I mean, for Mahomes in particular, especially in this game, they're going to need him to get out of the pocket.
Maybe.
They're going to need him to scramble.
Maybe.
Unless they rely on Pacheco to run the football, like you said.
Now they've got good screen game. They've got good quick game. It's all on how you want to use him.
Injury, especially on his back foot.
Yeah.
I mean, I've dealt with ankle injuries before too, and no matter how much tape you put on your ankle, it does not feel good. Just every step, you step the wrong way one time, and he'll be limping, no doubt, but adrenaline will carry him through.
Yeah,
there's never an ankle injury that kept me out of playing a game.
I'll take the Chiefs,
but you're going to take Mahomes at 85% and not 100%.
No question. And I just kind of I like the matchup, and I think the Chiefs found a little bit with kind of stumbling into the run game. And listen, Pacheco, you got to get that guy the ball. He's going to put you in advantageous.
His burst of speed.
Well, he just doesn't go down. See, he wears on you. He wears on you. And let him get his touches and let that defense settle in. I kind of like the matchups outside. Hurst and Mixon, those two out of the backfield are the things that would concern me. Hurst at the tight end spot. And I know about the tandem. I know Chase, Higgins, listen, legit. But I kind of like the Chiefs secondary. I like the way they play. It's be on Kansas City's linebacking core.
Well, we were critical last week about their pass rush ability.
Yeah, I just don't like the way that they've been getting after the quarterback, but they may not have to with some of the matchups that they have along Cincinnati's offensive line. I have no idea what Buffalo.
I'm sure they watched a lot of tape and
I had to hear.
Why didn't Buffalo do this?
I had to hear it
when
again.
They could have done that.
It's taking the boys to get haircuts yesterday, and I went through 8 channels because I think on 4 of the first 7, it was they really miss Von Miller. Then I almost snapped again. I'm like, okay. They got the ball ran down their throat.
Sore subject.
I hate it. Like, has anybody not played with a good player before? Like, that stuff happens. Tell that to Joe Burrow and his offensive line. Because it's an excuse. Like,
I get it.
Do you know how many games you'd have to go back and rewind from umpteen thousand sports on if a guy or gal played? Like, hey, they didn't. Stop doing that.
It's just so easy to gravitate to.
It's
so easy.
It's low-hanging, dirty fruit. Like,
well, it may not be dirty. You could wash it off.
Oh, usually if it's low-hanging, it's somewhere near the ground. That means things have tried to get at it. You know, I'm just like, really? I wonder what a healthy offensive line for Cincinnati would look like, because that could be scary. Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that.
Why not? Why not imagine what the best teams in football can look like with their best players?
Yeah, I mean,
why not?
Shoot, man. Gosh, if the Lakers just had Anthony Davis, they don't. Well, they still have the 4th best record in the West,
and they just made a trade.
2-10 start. But I'm a big Rui guy.
Are you?
Yeah. Well, I like Gonzaga.
He's a good guard.
I like Gonzaga, and I think Hachimura gives him some size.
What was he? 9th in 2019?
Yeah, somewhere around there. I like him a lot. That was a good player.
He also didn't want to be there in Washington.
Well, they gave him away for a bag of peanuts and Shane's old Salvation Army hat. So
in his orange Celsius.
Yeah, enjoy that. Shout out to Coach Wade Halverson, who's the president of Celsius.
Hey now.
Omaha West Side. We had 8th grade open house last night. Pass.
Did you go?
No.
Oh, okay.
Just milling around at school because I had everybody with me. And so I had Caleb, Zoe, and Micah. It's kind of single parenting a little. And people just making up parking jobs because it is the worst school to park for whatever the reason, right? They gave you like 16 stalls for like 1,700 students. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And people just, that they've never been there before, right? Open house, just making up parking spots. You can't park there. That's not
another sore subject for
It is.
Well, and parking stalls are a little smaller nowadays. I mean, they've tightened that up.
They need the Costco model, the double line, the big spaces.
See, I only go to Sam's, and I don't even know if Sam's does that.
Yeah, There's both by my house. I've asked the question out loud. Does it make sense to have both memberships?
Does it?
I don't know.
I only have one.
I only have one too.
And I actually mooch. It's my mom's.
Yeah.
But
Boy,
really, what a
you're
membership does
mo-
is just
with
get,
the great Barry Rogers, you're still a mama's boy.
dude, I'm telling you, Barry may pay for it, but I know my mom helped me hook that up. Or maybe it was my dad. I don't know. But beside that, Sam,
does it pay to have dual memberships?
What can you get at Sam's that you can't get at Costco and vice versa?
Well, I think so. I've asked because there are a lot of things that people will show me. Hey, I got this from such and such, and I'll say, "Oh, was that at Sam's or at Costco?" And they'll say one or the other, and then I always have to see if
does it boil
both.
down to like clothes and
I don't buy clothes.
Backyard items and
no
like,
food.
So, but that's what it
Food.
boils down for you. I would be shocked to think that Costco and Sam's aren't.
Well,
really
I know the
same
brand.
when
The
it comes to
brands are
food.
different. Like I know Costco is Kirkland. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know what
Sam's
Sam's is.
like Members Mark. I think that's what it is.
Is it?
Yeah. So like they each have their own.
Yeah.
Their own. It's like Target is Market Pantry, and you have great value at Walmart.
Market Pantry used to have very, very good flavored bubbly water. But then
Not a sparkling water guy.
yeah, that's shame on you.
Thanks.
Shame on you.
I just wanted to save it for you.
This is do you know what this is right now?
High quality H2O.
Nope, just club soda. I know.
Just club
I know,
soda.
that's it.
Who drinks just club soda?
You sound like Micah. It's like, Dad, why do you have club soda?
What is happening?
I want the bubbles without the cows.
You're ridiculous.
Kinda. I mean, there's a good chance that could. Well, you're the one that got me started with
club soda. No way.
No, the ankle talk, which led me into Von Miller, which is like, what's going on?
Hey, you got there on your own. I just joined you. I was in the passenger seat,
trying to land the plane, the whole thing of the NFL playoffs, I think, is fascinating, just because the last couple of years, usually somebody makes a run that they shouldn't. We saw it with the Rams. We saw it with the Bengals. I was talking with one of the guys on Twitter. There's been 6 wild card Super Bowl champions in 25 years. That's kind of a lot.
That is a high percentage.
That's 1 out of every 4 years. Mm-hmm. But I think this year, the 4 best teams are left in the NFL.
And even if the Bengals would have lost to the Bills, we'd still be having that conversation.
Yeah. Although, what gives me the advantage, why I give the Bengals the advantage? They were wearing Buffalo out the night Hamlin got hurt, too.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo hadn't showed me that they were going to remotely be in that game. They were down when that game was ended.
Yeah, that was so early, though.
Dude, it was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, but that was like
second quarter, right?
The game.
Second quarter, right?
No, that was first quarter.
Was it first quarter?
Wasn't it? I thought the Bengals had just scored. Then the Bills
had
they were out and
they were driving again.
Right, but it was only 7-0 at this time.
Yeah, I thought it was maybe in the second quarter. Maybe it wasn't. Seemed like it.
Gosh, regardless, time kind of stops when you see something like that.
Is that eons ago?
Yeah. Hey, Tim's on line 1. He's going to fill us in on Costco.
This is Colorado, Tim. You better be careful.
What's up, Tim?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are we today?
Hey, well, we're trying to figure out the difference between Costco and Sam's.
What's up, Tim?
Damon,
yes.
This is one of those husbanding, living a good life thing.
Okay.
I put in some time, okay?
Okay.
I've worked my tail off. And the day I went home and told my wife, honey, we're going to Sam's Club. And she says, no, we have a Costco membership. I said, babe, I got you. We're doing both. It was like our wedding night all over again. It was incredible. The relationship was brand new. We saw things we hadn't seen in a long time. There was a spark between the two of us. Costco's got better.
So what makes them different?
So wait. So she's graduated from the roommate to babe now?
This was 7 years ago.
Oh, so she's still the roommate.
Let's not go crazy here.
What's the difference?
Costco has better meat. somebody that I live with thinks the produce at Sam's Club is better. I just want the flexibility to do both. I travel a lot for softball. We buy food in bulk for softball. What if we're in a town that has a Sam's but not a Costco, or vice versa? What if I'm in the mood to turn right instead of left out of my neighborhood?
Like a NASCAR driver. I want to go left.
Hey, don't judge me, new guy. Damon's the only one who gets to judge me. Come on. This has nothing to do with NASCAR. This has to do with I like variety. I like to be able to make choices. This is America. I should be able to do what I want. If I got to spend money for it, I'll spend the money. But don't judge me.
I didn't judge anything other than turning left.
Appreciate the call.
No,
Be
it's
safe
fine,
out
Craig
there,
fan.
Tim.
Have a great day.
Tim's nuts.
Great suck.
He's nuts. Oh, and my buddy, so Degenerate, Aaron, he actually has both. He's been spending a lot of money lately. Stop spending money, Aaron. You're right. It's Members Mark.
Oh, I knew.
Oh, I thought I didn't know if it was.
Oh, wait, no, I was
rhetorical.
thinking Market Pantry. No, Members Mark is where I questioned if that was Sam's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is Members Mark.
Not too shabby.
My man
Sometimes I do have a brain.
My man just got new ice fishing equipment. He was
You ever
out there.
been?
No, but I want to. That's a funny story in my former life. I had an irrational fear of going out on the ice. So I practiced going out on the ice for like 4 years. And I took a picture almost every other day and put it on Twitter.
I'd tell you, I probably have a similar fear.
No, I'm good now. Like I went all the way out there and almost like waved
Nope.
at a guy that was in
Nope.
a little.
Nope.
I can't remember what they call them.
I don't know if that was instilled at me at a young age, excuse me, but for some reason,
Did
don't
you
you have to
watch-
like measure the ice, like how deep it is?
What did you see? Did you have irrational feel? Did you ever see Simon Birch or something? Like
No, this is what my parents said. Hey, Andrew, don't walk
Shane,
out on
were
the
you
ice.
traumatized with ice fishing because you saw Simon Birch?
No, but I don't really do the ice. I've done it. But
I wanna
I
do
don't.
it.
I don't like it.
So he's got some new gear.
I like
and
being in a boat.
and he's catching a lot of crappie.
Crappie fishing's fun,
Yeah.
especially if you find their home. Oh my gosh, you put the line in there and you catch one every time.
I,
Talk about
I-
impatient fishing. This
Yeah.
is like
hey, did you put
have some fun.
Did you put an air fryer on your registry? Are
Yeah,
you
I
going
did.
to?
I did the 7-in-1.
Oh, you went big time.
Oh yeah, like go big or go home when you have a registry, right?
Yeah, my mom just got me the 5-in-1, and it's
Unbelievable.
It's life changing.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. As we have a sports show, it was all over the place. What's the poll question today?
Hey, I'm on it, man. I'm on it. Here it is. Your poll question of today. If a genie gave you one wish and you had to pick one thing that would benefit every Huskers fan, what would it be?
Come on.
You didn't even hear the answer choices.
How are you going to narrow it down?
I pick 4 things and they choose one. It's pretty easy. Self-explanatory. I think that's how most poll questions work, DB.
This guy.
Is it winning 6+ football games? Is it Dylan Raiola's commitment? Is it the healing of Gary and Bandamel? Or is it watching a former Husker win Super Bowl MVP?
It's pretty good.
Oh, come on. How are you going to narrow it
You
down?
got jokes is that what we're on this morning?
You came after me.
Is that what we're on this morning? Giddy up. Here we go.
Hey, when we come back, let's talk about some of the movement in regards to Husker recruiting. We'll give you some names, and we'll tell you what we like next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes.
Arquette with the ball up 14. Solis to Joplin, right back to Cole.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers on 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. If you'd like to get involved in the show, 888-638-4876. Some big news on the recruiting trail as the portal officially closed, and Jacob Hood is the newest addition to the Huskers. He comes over from Georgia, now the third former Bulldog to join the Huskers. And boy, is he a big addition, because O-line seemed to be a priority still after falling from Rouse, from Mazuka, from Cornelius, and they got a guy. They didn't get the guy that everybody was out there going after, but once Hood's name hit the portal, people were calling for him.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think highly touted coming out of high school, obviously going to a good program. I think we're a little gun shy though as a fan base, right? Just we know that it's not super linear just because this amount of stars, Georgia doesn't mean this. But I think in terms of adding depth and that competitive drive that we talked about for so long yesterday, another, potentially athletic big lineman doesn't hurt to get in the fold.
And when I was doing a lot of research into him, because I was trying to gauge what he was like coming out of high school and who he is now after leaving Georgia, his big critique was that he didn't have a lot of technique.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have good footwork. But then I kept reading more into him this morning, and I found out one of his favorite sports is basketball. Well, basketball, you need insane footwork, and that has helped him progress into the player he is. So a big body, great frame, good size, can make up for more mistakes than he misses on just because of his size, yet he's still not the biggest tackle on the roster because you have Prohaska, and then you have Benhard, who also rank a little bit higher than him when it comes to total size.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because one of the things that I always like watching when there's new strength and conditioning is what happens with the body types, because really strength trainers are at the behest of their head coach, and what their head coach wants those guys, like the finished products, to look like is typically kind of how to gear this thing. And I wonder, like, prototypes, obviously you have to be able to measure frame and weight bearing and what kind of good weight that they could potentially carry. But I thought for the last couple of years that Nebraska was a little too big and a little too sluggish along the fronts, because I went through an exercise about a year and a half ago. I was just weighing, Nebraska's O-line and D-line versus everybody else in the rest of the conference. And I don't know, I think they're about 12 or 13 pounds heavier on the O-line and maybe about the same along the D-line. I have to go back and look at my notebook. And I almost kind of want to think lighter, quicker for the way that the conference is moving, because I want to be able to move, right? I was looking at the offensive line last year, and I think they got a lot better as the season went on, relatively speaking. Made a lot of progress as the season went on, because they started worrying less about getting to second level and making sure that they secure first level first, right? So I thought there were monumental increases in offensive line play. I didn't think the running backs helped them out a ton, right? Because you can help out an offensive line that's developing by just not trying to do too much. Get what you can get and don't throw a fit is what I like to say. So I'll be curious to see what kind of body types they want. They have some big guys, right? Does Teddy really need to be 330? Now, when you're 6'9", you may not have a lot of options. Right?
It may just come with the size.
I thought New Orleans looked good the other day when I saw him. Like, how will that tapered frame look? Because I think with these different fronts that people are saying and D-lines getting put on the move, you have to have a certain amount of athleticism. And, with a guy like Hood, who's a big guy, coming out of high school, a lot of times that's why offensive line, in my opinion, is hard to critique, because you don't have to be great technicians sometimes to be really good high school offensive linemen, because you can just maul guys, right? And so at some point that's going to catch up with you. And typically it's, when you get to conference play at Power 5 schools, right, technique matters. So I won't poo-poo it just yet, because I think better days ahead.
Well, and he learned from the best of the best when he played at Georgia. He competed with the best of the best while he was there. So he's got that mindset of, how can I help flip Nebraska?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help get them back to greatness, to their pinnacle? And I love that mentality as he makes his changeover. With Hood, Nebraska has now added 11 transfers, 6 on offense, 4 on defense, and 1 long snapper. He's the second offensive lineman in that group, but something that we still are missing, something that has been, I don't want to call it weighing on us because we've talked about it a lot, and Matt Rule and his staff have a plan for it, I guarantee it, but defensive line, an improvement there. You found out how you found a way to get it on the offensive side of the ball, right? When you retain Raiola, he liked the guys that were currently there. You add a few more to give your group some depth, but now work needs to be, maybe the page needs to turn, and here's the defensive lines chapter.
Yeah, I asked a couple of coaches at the Power 5 level yesterday, just trying to get a feel. Hey, where are you guys in terms of scholarship defensive linemen? And almost everybody was 11 or more, right? Nebraska currently has, Vincent Carroll Jackson, Van Poplin, Leonard. That's 3, all freshmen, no redshirt freshmen. They got Ruquan Buckley and Elijah Judy, gives you 5. Hutmacher, Robinson, and Stephon Wynn. It's not a lot of interior linemen. I mean, if you do the quick math, you're sitting at 8 right now. And that's a cause for concern. Now, depending on the front you play, you may not need as many, but contrary to popular belief, sometimes if you play an odd front and you play with like the numbers, like if you play with 2 4s, guys that are head up on the tackles and a nose, you need 3 true defensive linemen. If you're playing an even front, like a 4-3, you need 2 defensive linemen and 2 edge guys. So even though the number is smaller, you need more linemen for the odd front, unless you get, this fantastic tweener. There aren't a lot of Justin Smiths rolling around from Missouri that can get in a 5, rush the passer, and stop the run, right? There aren't a lot of those guys, the Richard Seymours of the world. So it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to find some guys to really add to the depth along that defensive line.
And then also offensively, the Huskers added Jeremiah Charles, and he is one of those high upside players. Yeah. Somebody that
multi-athlete guy.
Let's just say Matt Rule likes to gravitate to. Him and his staff love the forgotten one. And this is someone that only played a year of football.
Hooper, track, basketball.
Yeah, he may be a 3-sport athlete. Yeah. But in regards to the sport he committed to, only playing for 1 year, development's going to be the name of the game.
I don't know if it's rational or irrational. One thing, Coach, and I'm going to keep saying this because I hear it every time I talk to him. He's confident. He doesn't have any. It's not like he sits around and he's like, I wonder if we can develop these guys. I wonder if we're okay.
Yeah, wonder's not in his vocabulary.
No, because he has 1,000 case studies of converting and developing. So I don't think that that's what he worries about at all. And that's probably going to have to be one of their advantages, because I've always said what gave Iowa and Wisconsin and Minnesota the advantage over Nebraska in terms of development is they played a certain way for so long. They know exactly what the finished picture is supposed to be. Nebraska changed so much within such a short amount of time. I thought the picture was a little murky. So if they know what they want at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they start drawing with. I think they know how they want to get there.
Yeah, offensively, too, somebody that really intrigues me is Eric Gilbert. I haven't gotten to talk to you about that just yet, and we'll talk more about him in our next segment as we wind down our second segment of the show. But I want to get your thoughts on one thing, because he seems like somebody that can never be satisfied. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's always something.
So I want you to kind of sit back on that. And if you'd like to add in your 2 cents too, 888-638-4876, because it's left an uneasy feeling in me because a lot of people are giving him so much love right away. And I'm
he's not trending in the right direction, right?
Right. Yeah. And I'm kind of in the back seat, just kind of like overlooking everybody else. So we'll talk more about that next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, we'll talk to Nick Athan at the 8 o'clock hour, 8:30, John Fanta and Joel Lorenzi to close out the show. But now I want to talk about Eric Gilbert for a second. And something with him that doesn't make me want to dive right in. I don't want to dive into the deep end with Eric Gilbert just yet, even though I know the caliber of player that he is or can be. I know he's a 5-star guy. I know he absolutely dominated coming out of high school. He was very good for that LSU team when he first started his college football career. But something that doesn't settle right with me is that I don't know if he can truly be satisfied. And the reason I say that is this. After LSU won the national championship in 2019. That's when Gilbert made his start at LSU. And he played well. He played in 8 games, had a pretty good stat line, but wasn't happy with the results of that team. So he goes over to Georgia because he knows the position Georgia's in, and he thinks he can be the guy.
And they've been cranking out tight ends.
But you're not starting over Brock Bowers. You're not starting over Darnell Washington. So now you're what, 3rd on the list, maybe 4th on the list. You're competing for a spot, but you may not get it. Not satisfied again, but you did play for a team that won the national championship. So you enter the portal again. You go to Nebraska. My whole thought here is this. LSU became a pretty solid football team, at least this year. I don't know if he has that stick it out gene. Like, even when things get tough, even when situations are hard, you stick it out through thick and thin, because the team you're joining right now, you need a gene like that. So are you mature enough after what you've already gone through to have that gene inside of you, or are you just going to run when things get hard again? That's why I am uncertain about him as a player. I don't want to get too invested just to become heartbroken in the end.
Yeah, I think that's going to be, in the day and age of the transfer portal, you're going to get a lot of that, right? And I think that's kind of how a lot of Nebraska fans are in general, where it's, oh man, it's hard to love right out of the gates, right? You start looking at past performance, and I get it, right? The usually the best predictor of future performance is past behavior. Completely understand that. But I'm also a guy that would tell you, because I like a good triumph story, right? Just because it once was doesn't mean it always has to be. So a couple of things that I think could be different. Number one, there's only 8 total scholarship tight ends on the team. I say only. I mean, with Ishmael Smith-Flores, who we didn't get to last segment, the tight end room is all of a sudden full. Well, you got a lot of guys, and you don't have any seniors, right? So we'll see what happens with some guys that I think need some big years, right? Chase Androffs, Brody Tagaloa, James Carney. I think those guys really need to seize the moment, because, with Borkature and Hickman and Fedone and Rollins and now Gilbert, and you just got another 2023 tight end. I mean, we'll see.
Tight end room's full.
And it was a concern. So 4 weeks ago, I was like, but I was kind of assured, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to stockpile the tight end room, and they're continuing to do so. But I say this, I don't know, not all cases are the same, right? But there is a track record of getting guys to all of a sudden dial in when they hadn't before. And the 2 poster children I'll always use, because I know their stories the best, are Robbie Anderson and Hassan Reddick.
2 guys that played for who?
Matt Rule.
Oh.
So now there's some ones that got away. Don't get me wrong. Like there has to be. Like nobody's batting 1,000 with situations like this, but he's going to have every opportunity to be the man. You have support structures in place there that I really like, whether it's the player relations, whether it's kind of the support staff that I think are going to help out with issues. I like the academic staff. Way biased when it comes to the academic staff. But, I mean, I kind of have confidence. And I think he's going to get a lot of love. So you give yourself a chance. Now, listen, you Lord willing, blessed to have kiddos. You're going to want to raise your kiddos in such a way where the environment isn't going to dictate their behavior, right? You're going to try to instill whatever you believe in, where it's portable regardless of where they are. That's really what you're after, right? Because you don't want to have them be this person over here and this person. You want some consistency. So I understand that, and he's in a new environment. But I remember when I told you that Coach Rule said, I don't leave much to chance. I assume he's done his due diligence. I assume you get a sit down. I mean, heck, one guy that he was contemplating bringing back, I mean, he talked to him for 3-4 hours. It's a long time in a sit down, right? It's a long time in a sit down. And I clearly remember I asked one of the family members, hey, how'd it go? Well, everything's out in the open. He had done his homework. He's talking about Coach Rule, left no stone unturned. Really? He just got here. How do you get the backstory? Yeah, obviously had done his homework. Right? So I have some confidence in that. Maybe it's irrational, but part of it is my character, because I just think man, you don't have to subscribe to something just because it's always been that way. Like you can change it if you want to. You know what I mean? So that's
right.
That's just kind of
Well, and
where I come
everybody's been
from.
the man somewhere, right? You come to Division I, everybody's been the man somewhere. It leads me back to the article that Joel Lorenzi wrote, which we'll talk to him at 8:45 in regards to Trey Alexander, and not really knowing if that spot was right for him when he came to Creighton, because he was on the fence.
Contemplating going home.
You're leading right, which means, hey, I'm going to stay with the team, or you're leaning left, which is, hey, I'm going to go home. I'm going to leave basketball. And, maybe Eric Gilbert had some similar vibes when he left LSU. Maybe it's like, hey, I need a fresh start, or I'm not doing this anymore.
I don't know enough to know what those cultures are like.
Right. I don't want to plant thoughts, but, it's something that always gets me to think like, hey, this situation could have led to something like this, or that situation could have led for him to go to Georgia. Or, when he leaves Georgia, he's like, I want to play no matter what. So I shouldn't have left LSU, but I'm going to go somewhere where I can play all the time, which is why he picks Nebraska.
Well, so kind of the staff that he's put together, do you think he's trying to take preventative measures to alleviate potential problems? Because when I just look at the personalities, and listen, I'm not hanging out, so I could be wrong. But my early discernment is that they're player guys. I mean, I go with the age, where they've been, who they've been around. I think the ability to relate is something that was in the frontal lobe when he was putting the staff together. You could just tell by what it's comprised of. So, I mean, maybe some of those things are also some built-in insurances, but not assurances that it's going to work. Right? You're trying to take preventative measures.
And let's not forget that Eric Gilbert played football in Georgia his whole life. So maybe he did need to go home.
He's a Marietta. Yeah, he's a Marietta
maybe
guy.
He did need to go back to Georgia to then realize, like, hey, okay, I'm settling again. I want to get out of my comfort zone.
So he only had 3 catches this year, and I only know because it was I watched it because it was against Vandy, and I pay attention to Vandy. So I think all of his catches came against Vandy. But the year before, he got to double digits, right? Like, was it 16 for 365 or something like that?
Yeah, he had about 365 yards.
So, I mean,
8 games. Yeah, that sounds right.
Lot of game. And how about if the offense is going to evolve into what Sat said earlier with tight ends and run action and controlling the line of scrimmage, it could play right into his strengths.
Yeah, what kind of package do you think?
Man, multiple.
They run.
Multiple. I'd see a lot of 12 personnel. The worst for me is 12 personnel is a guy that has to put stuff together to stop offenses. 1 back, 2 tight ends are tough, especially when one of those perfect example, he was checking Kittle. Best wishes getting into personnel packages with those 2 guys' versatility. 2 guys that can be in line and break your face mask, or 2 guys that can get out and catch passes out in space too. Like those kinds of packages are kind of what I'm envisioning with multiple athleticism. I mean, A.J. Rollins was really developing. I'll be curious to see where he's at with another good offseason and where his mind is in terms of going to get it. Fedoni coming back off of injury. You've got Chris Hickman, who uber talented and very multifaceted, just has had a hard time staying healthy. What his frame would look like if he hangs in there. You put him with Gilbert. I'm a big Borkature guy. Probably more than most because I like that he does the little things. And he wasn't a natural pass catcher. He's worked at that quite a bit. And that can happen. So a lot of times people think you can either catch or you can't. I don't know about that, man. I'm watching a guy over at Bellevue West that spent a good amount of time catching balls. Didn't used to catch balls like that. And he has about 8 or 9 Power 5 offers, and Isaiah McMorris. You can learn to catch the football if you work at it, and he works at it.
And a lot of these guys are working toward bettering themselves, which is why the numbers are so high. Is there ever too many players? Who knows? We can talk more about that soon. But Nick Athan is next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
McKinnon sprints in motion to the near flat. Mahomes now steps up in the pocket, throws lane wide open, back of the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City. Marquez Valdez-Scantling on a 6-yard touchdown.
It feels better. I mean, it feels better than I thought it was going to be now. Obviously, I have a lot of adrenaline going right now, so we'll see how it feels. But I'll hop right into treatment tonight and try to do whatever I can to be as close to 100% by next week. But luckily for us, we played the early game on Saturday, so we get an extra almost half a day that I can let that ankle rest.
Best voice from a player, Patrick Mahomes. What do you think?
Yeah.
Coffee and cream.
That
in the
half a
morning.
day does matter, though. I'm not kidding you. Another 8 hours, 10 hours.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on it. It's a good deal.
It's Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. At this time, we'd like to welcome in Nick Athan, CEO of PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good. Great to talk to you again, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm just excited for this weekend. We're back in Arrowhead for the title game, as it should be.
This is strange. I feel like this is the first time I've talked to you in the last couple of years where there isn't like the manufactured Kansas City Chiefs fan base chip. Like this one is actually real because it seems like most people think Cincinnati, if they're not the better team, they're certainly playing better. The cloud with Mahomes' injury and the fact that you won close games late, doesn't seem like the Chiefs are the 14-win team that they really were coming into this one.
Well, you never apologize for a win. I don't care if it's 1 point, 3 points, 5 points. It makes no difference. I mean, listen, you're going to play close games in the postseason. You're going to play close games in the regular season. And I think what everybody has to understand about this football team, both offensively and defensively, and a lot of people are kind of like not understanding, this is a rebuilding year. And the Chiefs are in the AFC title game. I mean, completely revamped the wide receiver position, completely revamped the defense. I mean, you've got 5 young secondary guys, plus Karlaftis, who are getting serious minutes. And these kids are outperforming, what I thought they'd be at this point. So, this has a different feel, this game. Everybody's picking the Bengals. Everybody thinks DeBoer is a better quarterback than Mahomes. And for some reason, I had a bad feeling Saturday. I knew something was going to happen. I just had that gut feeling. Ended up being the Mahomes injury. They still win. I think Sunday has an opportunity for Patrick Mahomes to have one of the career highlights of his tenure in Kansas City. I think this is the biggest game that he's played since he's been in Kansas City.
Nick, something that we talked about a month ago when we were talking Coach of the Year and things like that. We thought Andy Reid, of course, should be in that mix. And for this reason in particular, one, if Tyreek Hill was still on this team, if you still had all of the greats from the one Super Bowl team, Andy Reid would be getting showered with love. Like he's this fantastic coach. His brain works differently than other coaches in the NFL versus this year. He's making do with a lot of new faces on the team, like you kind of stated in your last response. But are people giving Andy Reid enough credit for the work that he's doing this year? Because if things would have gone south, wouldn't people be calling for his head?
Well, I don't think so. He's got enough cachet. I mean, he's number 2 in, postseason victories and he's got his Super Bowl and, he's done about everything you could do as a head coach. So he really can't do any wrong at this point. But yeah, the off-season plan could have gone considerably south very fast. Now there were a lot of factors as to why they moved Tyreek Hill. And I think it was a good move. And obviously it paid dividends in the draft last year and also again this year. But, you've got you've got all those new faces. You've got, 4 new wide receivers. McCole Hardman's been injured most of the year. You still have Travis Kelce. You still have a couple of tight ends behind him that are still kind of feeling their way through the NFL. And I think if you just take a look at that, and plus the tackles for this football team have been bad. Now they played good in the second half against the Jaguars, and they're going to have to be brilliant on Sunday. But you take all these factors in, they're in the same place they were the last 4 years, in the final game and before the Super Bowl. So I think it's remarkable. I think it's been a brilliant plan. It's obviously worked. But Andy Reid, he's in charge. And, I don't know if you guys watched his press conference yesterday. He was in serious business mode. He didn't want to talk about the Mahomes injury. He just wanted to get back to coming up with a game plan to defeat the Bengals. That's the most serious Andy in a press conference probably in about 2 or 3 years.
Nick, full disclosure, the opening of the show, we were going back and forth about this, and I said I like the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs for a couple reasons. Number one, it's because an edgy Mahomes is my favorite Mahomes because he always feels like there's something he's got to prove. But the other thing I said is outside of they both share some clock time management things, Zach Taylor, Andy Reid, I like the fact Andy Reid will have to get in the lab for this game. Like, I like the Andy Reid factor, and maybe he'll even have to use Pacheco more. Like, are you getting that sense that this is an Andy Reid type game?
Yeah, I don't think Andy's left Arrowhead since Saturday. I really don't. I think he's been there the entire time. I don't, you know, his poor wife's probably not going to see him till after the game Sunday night. But you know, I think you're right. He's in the lab. He knows the situation with Mahomes. He knows he's going to play. I think Mahomes is going to be close to 100%. There was a picture of him yesterday working out with no tape on his ankle. So I don't know if that was a legit photo, but you know, Andy knows this is an important game for his legacy. It's an important game for the organization. It's important because it's the Lamar Hunt Trophy, and everybody thinks the Chiefs are going to lose. I mean, 90% of the people really believe that the Bengals are the better team. The Bengals have the Chiefs number. And I can tell you in that locker room from day one, week one, all they wanted is to play the Bengals in the postseason at home again to show that was a fluke. And they won't melt down like they did last year. They learned a valuable lesson. And so Andy knows that. He knows what's at stake. And I think you're going to see plays that we haven't seen in a really long time. And I think the Bengals aren't quite sure what level of Mahomes they're going to be facing, and they're going to have to adjust their defense a little bit as well.
We're talking to Nick Athan at Chiefs Insider on Twitter. Nick, how much do you think the injury of Patrick Mahomes will limit his play in this game? Do you think it's going to hinder it a lot, a little, or not at all?
Not at all. I mean, if he's going to have to run, he's going to run. If he's going to have to jump off one foot, he's going to jump off one foot. Unless that leg is sawed off, you know, maybe then we have an issue. But, you know, listen, Patrick Mahomes has carried his football team for 5 seasons now. And it's time the defense and the special teams do their part and carry Patrick Mahomes if he's not 100%. Even if he's 80%, that's enough. And it's going to boil down to his ability to handle pain, which obviously he's got a high threshold. His drive is second to none, and he can back it up. And I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to do virtually everything that he normally does, and he's going to give it his all. He's going to do everything it takes to help his team win.
Nick, I'll get you out of here on this one. I like the young corners. I like McDuffie. I like the secondary. But the key matchup for me is centers around the guy that I called the steal of the draft a year ago at Nick Bolton. That second level crew working with Mixon out of the backfield, the check downs, you got to find a way to neutralize Hurst. When you look at the game within the game defensively, are you wanting to generate more pass rush again? Is it controlling that intermediate passing game? Right. What's the key for you when Burrow has the ball?
You got to bring 5 guys. Okay, you can't do an all-out blitz because he's just going to kill you. Now, one thing that the Chiefs corners did really well is that they turned their head to look for the ball toward the quarterback. They haven't done that exceptionally well this year, but over the last couple of games against the Raiders and the Jaguars, these young corners have been more cognizant about where the football is and turn their heads around, and that's going to be key. But Bolton and Gay are going to have to blitz. They're going to have to be aggressive. Where the Bengals had the Chiefs number back in December was they went in a lot of all-out blitz, and Burrow just took that extra second or half a second, and he just killed the Chiefs with good coverage. Mm-hmm. And I think they have to have those linebackers underneath at times. They're just going to have to change the defense up. Look at what the Bengals did to the Bills And look at how often, they move their corners and their safeties and their linebackers around to create blitz opportunities. And a lot of times these guys were untouched. And then you look at the big play against Jacksonville, Justin Reed makes the pressure and it caused the interception. So those are the kind of things they're going to have to do. But the biggest key for me in this entire football game is going to be Chris Jones. He's had a brilliant career. He has 0 sacks in the postseason. He could have sacked Burrow last year to kind of probably seal the win for the Chiefs. He couldn't get it done. I think this is, like Mahomes, this is probably the biggest game of Chris Jones' career and the opportunity that he has. If he gets 2 sacks and Frank Clark plays his usual postseason heroics, I think the Chiefs have a pretty good chance to win this football game. But all those things said, the defense, and I said this when Mahomes went down, during the game, if the Chiefs want to get back to the Super Bowl, it's going to be the defense that's going to carry them, and they've got to play big on Sunday.
Nick, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you.
That's Nick Athan, CEO of PrimetimeSportsTalk.com. Toss him a follow on Twitter at Chiefs Insider. And
I told you he's a fan.
Yeah, he is a fan. He is a fan. I couldn't believe he called them in rebuilding mode. Like, I know, like, to a degree.
So I know a couple of Chiefs fans that said not this year, but next year. I've never heard the R word.
If they would have lost Travis Kelce, then I think they go in rebuilding mode. But you still had your number one target.
And we just act like they just didn't. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, vitamin D, whole skim. Just milk card, right? Mm-hmm. It's like there was a stretch in the middle of the season where we couldn't even name 3 of the 4 starting wide receivers. Then all of a sudden, Kadarius Toney gets healthy. We wondered if Kelsey's best days were behind us. Who's this Pacheco guy? I've heard it all year.
I think Pacheco was on people's radar more than any other player.
But listen, I'm talking about not running the ball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not they don't. He doesn't get the ball.
Yeah, sure.
But here's the thing, though. I felt like I had to defend I'm not a Chiefs guy. The fan base drives me nuts. But I felt like, are you guys serious? Like, this is still the best team in the AFC. That's the best quarterback in the league. I'm not sure there's an exec out there that could keep his job that says, all things being equal, you get to take one quarterback, and they don't take Mahomes. Like what are we talking about here?
Best quarterback.
Well,
best quarterback
one score games, and they don't cover. Shoot, neither did the Bills. They get inflated lines because they have superstar. They have superstar quarterbacks, but
unless you don't want the price tag that comes with them. Yeah, that'd be the only thing.
I'm telling you, that Chiefs are winning.
You pay somebody like that, though, to win you football games, to win you a Super Bowl. You pay the best guy to do that.
We had Nick on in another lifetime with Damon and I. We had him on I think it was 4 years ago, and he made a prediction at the beginning of the season. What was it? The Chiefs are going to
win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and lo and behold, they did. Lucky them.
Well, and it goes to show that good administration goes a long way.
Yeah, see, their front office, that's what I love. Like, you have one of the best general managers in football. You got a great head coach. Like, we're going to act like Andy Reid hasn't won 10 games in the postseason with 2 different teams. Come on, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right. That's why I think people would be calling for his head if things went sideways.
Not a chance.
I really do. Right? If they would have been a 6-win team this year, people would be like, we can't do it with Andy
went
Reid.
On with his family, he can survive a bad season. Trust me.
But I'm not saying he can't survive.
It doesn't matter though. The brass isn't the brass isn't going to do anything with him. The fans can say what they want, and I don't think they would.
I think they would. If his season would have gone sideways, I think they would have. People are not giving him enough credit for the season he's had.
Look at that offensive line. They have to play Orlando Brown Jr. for Pete's sakes.
I'm with you.
I
am with you.
Wiley hadn't been able to play dead sometimes. There's no way. Give me the Chiefs, man.
transitioning to the local side of things here.
What happens if Hundley doesn't fumble, reaching the ball over the goal line against the Bengals?
Mm-hmm.
That game's tied. Do you know how much? And I listen. If anybody loves Burrow, I love Burrow. And you need a little what we would call puck luck, right, to win games. But the Bengals have been able to catch a few breaks and capitalize. Now they whipped the Bills pretty good. No question about that. But there are some timely things that have happened. I go back to last year to get to the Super Bowl. They've caught some breaks. I just feel like even though Joe Cool is my dude, like probably the one guy I'd want to go hang out with, I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one.
And I don't blame you. I actually like the Chiefs as a dog. I didn't like them at 1.5.
I can't believe how the line. I did not expect you to hear. Where'd you pull that off of?
DraftKings.
+2, huh? I was thinking maybe because it opened
Plus
at what
105 for the money line. I may hammer that.
I thought it. Well, if you're gonna do, yeah, you probably do, right? If get you the plus money, but
why not?
I figured because what it opened 2.5. It got bet.
I
all
saw it
the way
open
the
at
other way,
1.5
and got bet the other way
because people were taking the Bengals and hammering them.
Hey, I don't know if you've heard this before, but Cincinnati is 4-0 against Buffalo and Kansas City. Their last 4.
Yeah,
I listened to Ryan Clark hammer that.
I'll tell you what, though, if I'm taking any quarterback in this game, I take Mahomes over Burrow all day, every day.
That's hard, even though I do think Mahomes is the best quarterback in football because Burrow is clutch.
Mahomes is too,
no question. But I wouldn't be as matter of fact. That would be a tough for me. Like game-winning drive, both guys. That's tough.
I'm taking Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean you can't really go wrong,
right?
Oh, Burrow. Does anybody have better My man Burrow used the word refunds. You think that stuff doesn't stick in his craw? Burrow
remembers.
Burrow is icy.
He remembers. You talked about puck luck too. How about Matt Rule on the ice in Omaha yesterday?
Hey,
taking a shot from the blue line.
See, and I didn't comment on it because I don't want to be that skirt and pom-poms guy for the staff all the time. That wrister was silly.
He's been on ice before.
Had to have been.
He's been on ice before.
I don't know who he was trying to fool. Like the ease in which he did that.
And he goes, should I slap shot or wrist
shot? Yeah, I'm like,
I'm just going to wrist shot.
And I'm talking,
right
I was like, he's filthy.
You know what? He's probably that guy that
I let it ride though.
He shows up at a hockey game as a fan. He's the lucky one that gets picked to go to center ice to take one shot into the little slit. You know how everybody has the putt on a basketball court, but on the ice you go into the little slit. He's the guy that buries that shot.
It looked like he'd been out there before. And trust me, I took Micah one to go ice skating. He went to Moylan Saturday night. His friends were ice skating. I'm watching some of these guys out there. I'm like, this is a hazard. This is a flat out health hazard. The ice is not a place to be if you're a rook.
I've never skated.
I have, and I hurt like heck for 3 days.
Were you holding on to the boards?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, and I try to go, and I just remember my groin. I just hurt.
Did you Bambi?
No, like the sprawling legs.
Yeah.
No, because I had 2 really good buddies. One since passed away, Nate Coleman. Like kind of taught me how to skate. He was a really good hockey player. I had 3 good friends that were good hockey players: Ted Lowndes, Kobe Boykins, and Nate Coleman. All could skate in high school, and it was them and the swimmers that would, they'd come to school or something, and their hair would be wet. Or I'm like, where are you guys? Shower. Oh, we had practice.
Yeah, swimmers always had practice at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
And that was back when you didn't have near as many sheets of ice as you do in Omaha now, because now I think you have a couple of options. There was only one at that point in time, so ice time was hard to come by.
Yeah, good administration leads to results, though. You talk about it from the NFL level all the way on down. You see the work that when Matt Rule comes to Omaha yesterday with Trev Alberts, like they're all working tandem together. They're all in it for each other's success. It's what makes you want to stick around.
I was walking to Mike's game Saturday or Sunday, and the guy parked behind me, and we were just talking about Nebraska football, and he goes, man, I like this administration. He goes, can you imagine if Bo had a good administrator? I kind of like Bo. You just can't talk to people like that, but I like Bo. Can you imagine Bo with Trev? I just was like, shoot, man, I'm just trying to imagine Matt Rule with Trev. It's just weird, you know. It's just
I'm living in the present right now.
Yeah, but to your point, like good leadership, and we're talking about adults needing good leadership. That's how difficult it is.
Yeah.
When other grown-ups need other grown-ups in their corner, like it's hard.
And think about like what UNO was able to do with good administration, like taking the UNO route here.
Well, the fiscal wherewithal was the big thing. I mean, where they got that to where it was, and now those guys working in tandem at the university,
right?
Doug Ewald and Trev.
200 former UNO football players were at a UNO basketball game just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
this is dated back to last spring when they were trying to get the football team to come back and just be alums of the school because of the ill will that was present there. And by one player throwing out the first pitch, now 6 months later, 8 months later, 200 football players are back.
Yeah. I mean, Crutch has a lot to do with that, right? The former football guy, but Aiden and Adrian and those guys just working just to make a concerted effort. I think is a beautiful thing.
It goes a long way.
Yeah.
Hey,
that was super touchy for me.
Speaking of the ice, as we wind down this segment before we get to John Fanta, can you believe the Mavericks are in position to host a playoff?
Well, if I would have had to have told you that the first handful of games this season were going to be how they eventually turn out to play defense and stop the puck on January 24th, I'd have told you were crazy. Remember, we were still auditioning goalies.
Right. And Kaharski's been awesome.
Yeah, so it's like, come a long way.
Currently in third place, top four host a first round of the league playoffs at home. And UNO has never hosted a playoff at Baxter.
And it's cool to see Gabs getting some run too. I saw him on, was it Channel 7 the weekend? Hockey, as you know, hockey gets fun at that arena in January. Remember, we were talking earlier. He's got to wait till past Christmas.
You have St. Cloud State coming up. You have North Dakota again coming up. These are big series.
And you will make some noise.
I will make some noise.
Yeah.
You got that right. I don't think the North Dakota's not at home. I believe that's on the road. Is St. Cloud State at home?
It's at home. I think it's a home and home, right?
Yeah. Well, they play two at home.
Yeah, this one's at home.
So St. Cloud State's at home.
Yeah.
North Dakota's on the road. Now, they've also never been to the NCHC Frozen Face-Off. And if you would have told me at the start of the year that this is the team, if you matched up last year's lineup and this year's lineup together, and you told me the latter was going to have a chance to be a Frozen Face-Off team,
You'd have been buying me breakfast again?
I would have been buying you breakfast because I would have taken the other. I would have taken the sure option. You know who is the sure option? John Fanta. We'll talk to him
next.
Wait.
Energy of Nick, energy of John. Let's
energy
go.
up. Here we go.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Miles Wilmoth in the corner, a three-pointer, no good. Rebounded by Jackson. Great pass, Hawkins. Hawkins stuffs it home. Marquette with the ball up 14. Kolick to Joplin, right back to Kolick, still outside the arc, left side. 30 feet away, right side. Now on the wing, Cam Jones, open three. Good again. Good again.
Hey, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Happy to have you with us. 590 ESPN Omaha, 1480 ESPN Lincoln, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, 888-638-4876 to get involved on the show. Before we get to John Fanta, as we wait closely by for him to join us on StreamYard.
How close?
Pretty close. I'm like leaning into the camera, leaning into my computer. Let's talk about Caitlin Clark for a moment and what she was able to do last night.
Silly.
She is unbelievable. She four triple doubles with 25 points or more are the most in Division I history. That's Caitlin Clark. That right there is Caitlin Clark. She had 28, 15, 10 boards. That's her 8th triple double of her college career. Is there anyone better in college basketball than Caitlin Clark?
15 dimes. And what'd she go from the foul line? Like 9 of 10? Something like that. You know, because she was only 3 of 10 from behind the arc, I think. But she was like 9 of 10 from the foul line. She's sharing the rock. And I'm like, they just went into the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 2 ranked. And that was Ohio State's first loss, right?
Mm-hmm. And they live and breathe through her.
I know.
Or live and die, excuse me.
And here's the interesting thing, because especially on the heels of Nebraska women's basketball this weekend, and boy, they look like a different team without Widener. But They got to get healthy. Like, I mean, it is a mash unit out there for that basketball team for what once looked like a pretty promising season. We may have to grab Coat and talk women's hoops.
We should. John Fanta's in now. There he is. Look at him. John, good morning.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
My man. John, how are you this morning, buddy?
Damon, it's good to see you. It's great. It's great to be on with you guys. It's been a little while. Love to be talking some college hoops with you. Love the Caitlin Clark chatter. I'll tell you what, guys, it's a fun time of year. Everybody always talks about the madness and what that delivers. But, like, if you follow college hoops night in, night out right now, there's just a different twist on true home games and true atmospheres and conference play, and different teams go through the rough patch. Like here, Kansas has lost 3 in a row. Who would have seen that coming 2 weeks ago? So I love this time of year and the night-to-night grind on that journey to March.
John, we went through yesterday in a mini debate, and I heard Jay Billis and those guys say it too. And I just I feel like I should give pushback just because, but they were talking player of the year. And Andrew and I yesterday got into this back and forth of just Big Ten player of the year between Edey and Trace Jackson Davis. And, 21, 13, and 61% from the floor versus Trace Jackson Davis of, 20. He shoots 60% from the floor, 10 rebounds a game. And I'm like, why is it such a foregone conclusion that Edey is the guy? If you're having to defend or game plan and get your scout ready, would you rather Edey be on the roster or Trace Jackson Davis, the human block party?
Yeah, it's such a great question. It's an interesting argument. I mean, I still am going to say I'd rather face Trace Jackson Davis. And maybe that has to do with the supporting cast around him in Indiana. And it shouldn't, because you're asking me individual talent. But when you combine the individual talent of 7'4" Zach Edey with his ability to just catch the ball from a good 10, 12 feet out and be able to make things happen, because his hook shot, I mean, I'm fully convinced he could turn around from the elbow and knock that down with one hand. So I'm taking the monster. I'm taking the monster. And I think when you look at the fact, guys, he has posted 26 and 14 4 times this year. It's only happened 11 times elsewhere in college basketball, and that's only happened for a player once, meaning 11 different players have done it. Edey's done it 4 times. That's absurd. And his team has 1 loss on the entire season. His team is what? 19-1. So for me, you got to hand it off to the guy who is winning the most, who has had the Heisman moments at Michigan State. How demoralizing of a loss for the Spartans.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Izzo said after the game, and when do you ever hear Izzo say this? Izzo goes, I thanked my team in the locker room after we played well enough to win today. I guarantee you Tom Izzo's never said that. If he has, it's happened like 2 or 3 times in his entire career. You know why? On a day where Tyson Walker went for 30.
Oh, he's nice.
He still didn't have the best player in the game. I mean, that is crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. That to me is just that's baffling. I can't even. That'd be like sending me to an Omaha lunch buffet and I wouldn't have the top performance. That's why I always feel better when I head out to Nebraska. You get my point.
I get it. Right. I get it. John, you talk about being baffled, absurdity. And we could use any other word here to describe what we just heard from you. But we also talked yesterday about Creighton's future seed in the tournament. And after starting off 9th in the nation, they went from a potential Final Four team to most likely a double-digit seed. But as of today, who's closer to being a 10 seed in the tournament? Would you say it's Creighton or Duke?
Oh,
Good question.
huh.
Well, you know that Mike Krzyzewski has more time to spend near the committee room now.
It sure does.
Yeah. Yes,
No,
he does.
I would still say today, Creighton, because you did lose 6 in a row, and the committee's got to take that into account. But analytically, you would say Duke, and the direction that the programs are going in, you would say Duke as well. To me, guys, I'm buying back. If you can buy Creighton stock today, you should do it today and not next week or the week after, because to me, I think the script sort of writes itself here. They were never going to stay down for too long. They've got the makeup and they've got the head coach who knows how to get his team to play the best basketball. There's no better coach in the Big East at getting his team ready for the Big East tournament than Greg McDermott. It's kind of insane how good of a coach he is around that week of the year. And it's a reason why his team has been to 4 Big East tournament finals in 9 years. So I think that they could end up on the same seed line. But if you're asking me, like, today, the bracket doesn't come out today. So it would be Creighton today. But who am I buying? Who do I feel better about going forward? It's got to be Creighton. Because at the end of the day, Creighton has top 10 talent, but a coach who's experienced. Let's face it, John Shire is not experienced in this role. And
Showed last night against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, it really did. His late game execution was not very good. So I'm buying the Blue Jays. And guys, you know, I'm not saying that this will happen, but it would not shock me. It really would not shock me if Creighton goes on a crazy run. And I have this gut feeling. I've had it since the start of the season, and I maintain the gut feeling. I think Greg McDermott's finally going to get his first Big East tournament title. I just think it's so due to happen. And I think if that happens and you go on a run, you could wake up Selection Sunday with how soft this bubble is and with how ever evolving it is. And, oh my gosh, Creighton went from a 10 or 11, and in about 6 weeks, they made it a 6 seed. You know, I wouldn't, all I'm saying is I wouldn't rule it out. They're one of the teams who could do it.
It's interesting, too, because they're only 1-5 against quad 1 teams, but they've got a chance to really make some hay. I mean, Xavier, Marquette, Providence, I want to stay right in the Big East because they got my attention. I don't know when I made the tweet. I think, you know, they were maybe only 3-1 in the Big East. And I said, Marquette looks like a team that is going to be pretty good. How in the world did Shaka Smart run it back with that lineup without the additions to have Marquette 16-4 doing what they're doing this year right now?
With honesty and accountability, seriously. So his team had won 8 of 9 games last year, right around this time. They then proceeded to lose 6 of their final 9 games. And Shaka Smart had player exit interviews, and his players talked to him. And they were real with him, and he was real with them. And the fact is, guys, at the end of the season, last year, Marquette had egos at play. They had a guy in Justin Lewis who frankly wanted to go pro and did. You guys know what happens to a roster that's divided in where they are directionally and in what can happen there. And Shaka, look, he took the blame. He didn't have his team ready for the stretch run of the season. They got beat. So immediately, like, to me, Shaka Smart doesn't look at Marquette as a stop. He looks at it as a destination. He's from Wisconsin. His mother lives there still. He's got a beautiful wife, a great daughter, and family to him. He's been able to reconnect with his family in Milwaukee and the Wisconsin area as opposed to Texas. And I know this doesn't have anything to do with basketball. We're going to get there. But to be able to tell what's happened on the floor, you have to be able to tell some of the things that have happened. They have those exit interviews, and they talk about kind of how they build on this. How do they avoid having the same type of season in year 2 from year 1? Well, then in the preseason, he takes his team on a retreat in October for a couple of days. He told me the players controlled 98% of the conversation in terms of goal setting, in terms of what they planned to do, what they mapped out. At that point, they knew they were picked in the Big East. how they exceed those expectations, and how each guy performs his role. They allocated roles on this retreat. Now, in 2022, college sports, it is a hell of a lot easier to hand out dollars than it is to be real with each other and say, here's what we need to do to win. And that's exactly what they did. And they said, Tyler Kolek, you've got to be an elite distributor. Cam Jones, you've got to be our scorer. Oso Iguodala, you've got to hang with Ryan Kalkbrenner and Adama Sanogo. They laid them out, and they even had some tough conversations. Now, transition to what this season's been. They know who they are better than anybody in the Big East. They're the top offensive team in college basketball. That illustrates it. KenPom has them number 1 in adjusted offensive efficiency. And it's because they have the best backcourt in the Big East, in my humble opinion, with Kolek and Jones. And mobile bigs. Their size is mobile. It can run. Smart, with his staff, was very intentional in bringing in guys. He brought in Nevada Smith, who had G League experience, a guy who had been a part of NBA offense, knows what it looks like. He's very intentional in getting guys who could modernize his approach and make Marquette different than other teams in the Big East. They're actually a very specific team to scout. They're a specific team to face. And that is what has led this group. Just old-fashioned player development, not making a transfer splash, not bringing in this huge freshman class. And they're 16-5 and 8-2 in the Big East. And I think, as we talked today, that they could very well win the Big East Conference. And you know why? They've gone against the grain in today's climate of college hoops. They're just doing it by buying in to the guys they already have. There's not a ton of programs doing that. And
John,
I think it's built the respect from the players.
John, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much today. And we got to talk again soon. We got to. You got a boatload of information up there. We have to get it out of you.
Appreciate it, John.
Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate you.
Joel Lorenzi's next. Hey, welcome back to the show, Coffee and Cream in the Morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. He's Damon Benning, waving to Shane, not the camera. I'm Andrew Rogers. Why'd you wave to Shane? Just because? It's 8:45 and you're having a good time?
I just want to make sure he was doing okay.
Nah, I'm doing okay.
We are
John Fanta. I went long, but man, was he good.
Yep. And if you missed anything from that interview, make sure to check out the podcast. I know with our tight breaks on the radio, it may have cut you out, but it's really easy to go back and find. Go to H Varsity Radio on Twitter or go to your favorite podcast page, and that's Hail Varsity Radio, and you can catch the full interview with John Fanta. He's a encyclopedia when it comes to college basketball, and there's no telling if you could quiz that guy on something that he wouldn't get 100%.
He's a great storyteller too. Doesn't take himself too seriously. I'm a big Fanta guy. We got him when he was just getting started.
Right.
Like, and he was like this young.
That's what you were telling me.
He's this young, energetic guy that used to post, these his little interviews and snippets, and I'm like, you know what? I like him. I like him a lot.
And you know who else you like?
This guy right here.
Joel Lorenzi. He's on the phone. Joel, good morning.
What's happening?
What's up, buddy? Now. Hey, so I just got through. We were talking to John Fanta, and he was just putting us super deep on kind of the growth and the mindset of Marquette and how Shaka Smart had to kind of reinvest in his own guys. And he said it was just good old-fashioned player development and coaching hires. When I asked you 3 weeks ago and we weren't sure yet, let me ask you again this week. Right now, who do you think the best team in the Big East is?
Oh, Marquette, no question.
Okay.
Polls won't reflect it. Obviously, Xavier had a good run for a while, but if you look at resume and um, you know, losses that Marquette has taken versus the losses that Xavier's taken, and Marquette hasn't lost a game DePaul, respectfully. And they look really good against good teams. And obviously, both have tougher schedules the rest of the way than crazy for Marquette. And they're running teams down, man. Like in the half court offense, it doesn't look like anybody can really stop them.
Yeah.
And they're not a bad team either. They're miles ahead of Xavier in that front, I think. I think they're the favorite to win the Big East right now.
Joel, you wrote a great piece yesterday about Trey Alexander, which is a story everybody should read. Go check it out at the Omaha World-Herald as we speak to the Creighton beat writer for the paper. The piece that you wrote about him was moving because based on his story and what he had to overcome, it's what a lot of athletes just in general have to overcome, battling like, do I give this up or do I keep pushing forward? How important is it for any player to keep a short memory during rough patches and gravitate to something that, may help them get away, but also lead them back?
Yeah, very. I think especially during the season where a team and program that probably isn't used to expectations so grand, and then obviously falling off that cloud nine relatively soon, a losing streak that kind of came out of nowhere. A big man that contributed to that. They faced a lot of adversity that no one had forecast. So it's always good to keep supporting because college basketball is more unpredictable than most sports, I would say. And you can still like with Trey, he had a slump there early in the season, especially when the team was during a losing streak. He had a game where there were cold nights. Like you said, he's kept a short memory, and now he's had a stretch here in recent weeks where he's killing it, man. And you look at the overall outlook of the season, and, statistical outlook. He's had an overall good season. Picked it up when it mattered.
Joel, the next 3 out of 4 are at home, but only one chance at a quad one win. Creighton currently sits 1-5 versus the quad one. How important is it with Mac's skill set in terms of getting guys to dial in that you don't try to get too big picture, because what they can't afford is a slip up here with 3 of these next 4 at home, like I said, and a very favorable schedule.
Yeah, and they understand how important it is. Like we asked Baylor Shireman before Butler, probably even before Providence, I think, if they felt, extra weight with every game now that all the big road opportunities. Yeah, every game matters more now. And so I think they understand the gravity behind it all. They won't acknowledge it, but, the rest of the way it's on them because a lot of the games they have to, bolster their resume are at home. They get the Xavier return, they get the return, they get the Marquette return. They got chances to defend home court against teams that are really, really good. Probably, back in retrospect, they probably didn't envision having a chance to knock off a team as good as Marquette because Marquette was picked 9th in the preseason polls. Like, this is an opportunity they probably didn't think they'd have. So the opportunities are there, and they understand the weight of each game weighing on them.
And speaking of the next game in particular against St. John's, this is a team that got off to a roaring start and then ended up trickling down once conference play had started. But that's not to say that they can't beat any team on any given night. Soriano has looked fantastic, probably one of the more improved players in the conference. And even for that team, you have the DePaul transfer and David Jones. You have Corbello, Alexander. I mean, a very veteran group. But as Creighton comes in preparing for this game, how is Coach Mack delivering to his team not to take this St. John's team lightly?
Yeah, they know the intensity St. John's brings. They know the weight that St. John's carries with their own games. I think St. John's expected to be where Seton Hall is, a team that could maybe beat any team on any given night on the best days. And not saying St. John's can't, but for Seton Hall, it's afforded them, a win over UConn most recently and, lifted them into bubble talk to some bracket houses. So I think that's where St. John's is expected to be. But there's weight with every game they play, too. They want to see where Seton Hall is at the very least. And Mike Anderson entered the season. So there's weight all around that program to get a win like this. And I think teams around the conference know how good Creighton really is despite the record due to strength of schedule. So Creighton's not taking any the rest of the way, and they know defensive intensity from St. John's, some of the challenge they have. And that St. John's, a team like St. John's, is probably best to peak around this time or over the next month, really.
Joel, let me get you out in this. Who's closer to what their record really is in the Big East? Providence or UConn?
I think I've been saying this while UConn's been on a losing streak. I Providence because I'm not out on UConn. Obviously, they've looked rough during the stretch, and I don't think they were ever really the number one team in the country. But I don't think they're as bad as the recent stretch will show. I think they've got their flaws, but most of these teams do. And I mean, Creighton's flaws have been out there for some time now. They're just working their way around them. I don't think UConn's found their way around yet. They enjoyed so much early season success. So I like to say Providence. I'll give Providence some credit, and I'll set UConn back.
Joel, we appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so much. We'll talk again next week.
All right, guys. Talk to y'all.
See you, buddy.
And as Joel drives out, I want to drive out on this point, too, and tell you about Dingman's. They've been in the business for over 25 years in Omaha. Family-owned, family-run local business. They invest in the latest technology to stay up to date with the ever-evolving technology of what cars are today. One of my favorite things that they have, which isn't a crash or a tire squeal, is their give back program where they have the customer decide what charity Dingman's is going to give a donation to. I mean, I just think that is a tremendous effort that they do over there. 4 locations through the metro area, along with the standalone mechanical shop at 120th and Maple. If you have something wrong with your car, if you're looking to upgrade your car, or you get in a car crash, you head over to Dingman's. They'll hook you up. Go to dingmans.com for an estimate today. How about that? Dab me out on that.
I like that. The funny thing about, as we kind of ramp up for this, and Nebraska, we talked yesterday real quick about the day off and Northwestern and maybe them needing some rest to get some of their other guys ready to go. Level of surprise that Northwestern was able to hold off Wisconsin after not playing for so long. Do you know they
I
were?
couldn't believe Wisconsin.
They were favored.
I couldn't believe Wisconsin lost that game, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I thought Wisconsin was the better team coming in. They were in better position.
Is it weird? Because I think Northwestern is pretty good.
They are a good team. And I'm not going to knock them, but just based on everything that they were carrying going into that game, I felt like that was a huge weight on their shoulders, and Wisconsin should have been able to close that down. They could not put free throws in, and they shot horrifically from the field.
Same thing that almost cost Virginia Tech last night.
We'll continue conversation on Morning Dump. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk again tomorrow on Coffee and Cream.